Academics, NGOs as well as activists have written a letter to the President and the Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu requesting that the child support grant be increased by 500 rand as a result of the lockdown. Now, the distribution of food parcels across the country have again shown how desperate South African households are, and now many of them have lost their only source of income. We now speak to Katherine Hall from the Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town. A very good afternoon to you, Katherine, and thank you for your time today.
Good afternoon, Tammy. Thank you for having me on the show.
Perhaps, Katherine, let's start with the petition that has been signed by almost 600,000 people that was sent to the Minister of Social Development as well as the President. What are the circumstances that led to this?
Well, the petition was really picked up from work that was done, a range of civil society groups and academics started looking at the evidence, thinking about what is the first priority for protecting households at this time. We know that we went into the lockdown with already very high rates of poverty and inequality, families already struggling with food insecurity, high rates of unemployment, around nearly 40% of working age people who are available for employment are unemployed. It's incredibly high. And the immediate effects of the lockdown, and of course we can't fully quantify those, but we hear from reports around the country of people losing jobs, people who were in precarious employment, domestic workers losing their income. There have been enormous job losses. We will see the full nightmarish picture when just become available. And in the meantime, it's also clear that the informal sector has been extremely badly affected by the lockdown, even though government reversed its decision on the regulations and allowed informal food sector traders to continue trading after initial lockdown on them. So there are huge concerns about what should be done to support households which have lost their income streams, who were already in very poor and difficult circumstances. And looking at the array of options, and of course, food parcels are an option, but they cannot reach anything like the scale of what is needed here. It had to be done through the first course of action has to be done through the existing social grant system, which is an incredibly efficient system for getting cash into households. We know that every month the cash grants are paid into people's bank accounts, or some people need to go and collect them at pay points. Over 18 million grants are paid a month, and it would be as easy as a touch of a button to be able to increase those grant amounts, to get more cash into households, to protect them from food insecurity, and there are also arguments that it would simultaneously help to stimulate local economies, to support the informal sector, which employs nearly 20% of those employed in South Africa. So the biggest grant is the child support grant, and this is why the call was, as an initial step, to increase the child support grant, which reaches more people than any other grant in the country. It reaches nearly 12.8 million children in 6 million households. So you'd be getting cash immediately into 6 million households.
So Katherine, what I hear you saying, and correct me here if I'm wrong, is that the increase in the child support grant is not necessarily for the children themselves, but it is a way to get extra money into the household. So it is an acknowledgement that the money is not solely for the children, but for the provision of the entire household.
Yes, well, the current child support grant, which is 440 rand a month, is meant to be for the child to whom it's allocated. But of course, those children are cared for by adult caregivers, and there are no social grants for working age adults. They've been hard hit in these circumstances. So in a way, attaching an increase to the child support grant is both helping to protect children, because otherwise those tiny grants that they receive of 440 rand may end up having to support entire households, including the adults in them. And it's also a mechanism, a vehicle to get cash into households quickly and easily. Some economists there's work which was presented to the presidency, looking at the relationship between, say, for example, the informal sector and households that receive child support grants, and found that there's a very good overlap. If you get extra income into households that receive child support grants, you will also be targeting a very substantial proportion of households that were depending on informal sector income before the lockdown. So it's a good way of targeting the poorest, most vulnerable households who are likely to have lost income during this time. And we're concerned that it should be done urgently. It's exactly 2 weeks until the end of the month, and then we have the next grant pay run. So we were hoping for an announcement of this today, but we've heard that there will be a further cabinet meeting next Monday on the 20th of April to discuss the set of programs, and we are, as you said, that the petition has already gathered well over 500,000 signatures. There are calls from across a range of sectors across society to add this, what is effectively a small amount, 500 rand, onto each child support grant in order to get a substantial amount of money out into households. Even though it will only be a small amount for each household, it will make a difference to food security and to those households' ability to survive the lockdown.
Well, thank you so much for that, Catherine. That's Katherine Hall. Certainly every little bit does count, and the President and the Minister are saying that they are considering that particular request. There's also been a request for an increase in old age pensions.